Eli never imagined that the biggest revelation of his life would come quietly. No shouting, no dramatic scene, just a small shimmer on the bathroom rug that caught the morning light. It was a thin circle of foil, the kind that peels off from a pack of pills. He crouched to pick it up, curious, and noticed a tiny 2 printed on it. Tuesday. It was Wednesday. He wasn't on any medication, and as far as he knew, neither was his wife, Mara. They'd both had checkups recently, and their doctor had told them they were in perfect health. So, why was there a piece of pill foil on the floor? He tried to dismiss it. Maybe it had fallen from something else. But the knot in his chest refused to loosen. Years ago, Mara had been on birth control pills until he got a vasectomy. After that, she'd stopped taking them. At least, that's what she told him. The sight of that little foil circle set off a chain of thoughts he couldn't control. If she was still taking pills, it wasn't for pregnancy prevention, not with his vasectomy. Unless she was worried about getting pregnant by someone else. Eli stood there for a long time, staring at the foil. His mind raced, but his body felt frozen. He had always trusted Mara completely. She was the calm one, the reliable one, the woman who helped him build a beautiful life. But now, a single piece of foil had cracked that image. He carefully placed it back where he'd found it, deciding not to say anything just yet. His instincts told him to investigate first, to know, not guess. At work that morning, Eli couldn't focus. Instead of reviewing engineering contracts, he found himself searching for private DNA kits and hidden cameras online. His stomach turned at the thought, but he couldn't stop. If Mara was cheating, he needed proof. Undeniable proof. He ordered voice recorders, tiny cameras, phone cloning software, and a discreet DNA kit for himself and the kids. He hated himself for doing it. But love mixed with doubt is a dangerous combination. Eli told himself this was only to protect the truth, not to destroy his marriage. The next few days dragged by like years. Mara behaved exactly as usual, laughing with the kids, calling him honey, even kissing him goodnight. Nothing seemed off, but that, he realized, only made him more uneasy. Friday came and his packages arrived. Eli had them delivered to his office, so Mara wouldn't ask questions. That afternoon, he pretended to have a short work day and went home early. The babysitter was feeding the children, James and Sonia, in the kitchen. Eli quietly went upstairs and began installing the cameras, one in the bathroom, one in the bedroom, and one in the living room. His hands shook, but his resolve stayed firm. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, he took cheek swabs from the children for the DNA test. They giggled, thinking it was a game. Daddy's checking our cheeks. Sonia laughed. Eli smiled weakly and told them it was just for fun. He swabbed himself too and sealed the envelopes. Then he mailed the samples, praying he was wrong. When Mara came home later that evening, everything felt eerily normal. She talked about work, the kids, and dinner plans for the weekend. Eli pretended to listen, nodding at the right moments. Inside, though, he was studying her every gesture. Did she look guilty? Nervous? She seemed perfectly relaxed. That almost hurt more. After Mara went to bed, Eli stepped outside and planted a recorder under her car seat. Then, using a small USB device, he cloned her phone data, texts, emails, photos. He combed through everything for hours, but there was nothing. No secret messages. No late-night calls. Just school updates, grocery lists, and casual chats with friends. It was either proof of innocence or the sign of someone hiding things well. The weekend passed almost peacefully. They took the kids to the park, had family breakfast, and even shared quiet laughter at dinner. But Eli couldn't relax. Monday morning, after Mara left for work, he retrieved the footage from the cameras. His pulse raced as he watched the first clip, the bathroom. There it was. Mara taking a small white pill every morning. His throat tightened. She was definitely taking something. The camera zoomed just enough for him to recognize the pill's shape. It looked exactly like birth control. Eli opened the next video with trembling fingers, the bedroom feed. On Saturday evening, while he had been downstairs cooking stew for the kids, Mara stepped from the shower with damp hair and a towel around her shoulders. She crossed to the dresser, pulled out a small phone he had never seen, and typed quickly with her head bent low. "Be smart, Eli," he whispered to himself as the video continued. Mara glanced at the door, then walked to the air vent near the window. She unscrewed the cover with a coin, lifted it away, and slid the tiny phone inside the duct. "No one will look here," she muttered on the recording, almost too soft to hear. She screwed the cover back, checked the hallway, and left the room. Eli paused the video and leaned back in his chair. "A second phone," he said, the words tasting like rust. Now her clean messages made sense. The truth was not in the phone he knew. It was hidden in the vent, buried like a seed of betrayal waiting to grow in the dark. That night, Eli moved like a ghost through the house. He waited until the shower started and steam fogged the mirror down the hallway. 2 minutes, maybe 3, he told himself, counting heartbeats instead of seconds. He slipped into their daughter's room, Sonia's room, a place painted with soft moons and stars, and knelt by the second vent that connected to the bedroom duct. The screws were loose, just as on the other side. He turned them with his fingers, slid off the cover, and reached into the cool metal throat. His fingertips brushed smooth glass. He grasped the hidden phone, pulled it out, and tucked it beneath his shirt. "Stay calm," he whispered. He crossed the hall, shut himself in the small office, and connected the phone to a prep device. A progress bar crept across the screen while the shower continued to roar. Files poured over, messages, photos, locations, voice notes. When the bar flashed complete, he hurried back, placed the phone inside the vent, twisted the screws back, and stepped into Sonia's room as the water stopped. He stood over her small sleeping shape and stroked her hair. When Mara peeked in and saw him there, he forced a soft smile and said, "Just checking on the kids." At the office the next morning, Eli opened the clone. The first text chain hit him like a punch. "Can't wait to see you," Mara had written. "Same place as last time. He's gone tonight." The reply came from a number saved only as B. The tone was cocky, familiar, intimate. There were hotel confirmations, playful notes about stolen hours, voice notes that drifted in and out with low laughter and whispered plans. In one message, Mara joked about hiding in plain sight and thanked B for bringing spare keys. "Eli never checks anything," she had typed, followed by a winking face. He scrolled further and saw them coordinate around his business trips. "He flies Tuesday," B wrote. "I'll be there at 6. There were no names attached, no careless selfies with faces, but the pattern was clear and ugly. Eli blinked hard until the screen doubled. He pressed his fingers to his eyes, but the tears still came. He had proof now. Proof that did not explain how far it went, but proof all the same. The world inside him shifted, like a building losing one of its main supports. A knock came at his door. Michelle, his senior assistant, stepped in with the calm of someone who understood storms. She closed the door, locked it, and slid a box of tissues across the desk. "Breathe," she said. He tried to speak and failed. He handed her the second phone's summary. She read the page, without flinching. "We need a plan," she said softly. "Not a fight, not a scream, a plan." He wiped his face and nodded. "Start here," Michelle continued. "You're leaving for a surprise trip to the Portland branch this afternoon. I'll book it. I'll message Mara from your phone. I'll cover the office. While you're gone, we'll get counsel and set the steps." Eli stared at her. "Why a trip?" She held his gaze. "Because if you stick to routine, she will, too. And we want her to think everything is normal." Then she wrote a name on a sticky note. Lorraine. Divorce attorney. Sharp. Ethical. Relentless when needed. "She saved my life once." Eli felt the floor tilt again, but this time toward control. "Book the ticket," he said. "And call Lorraine." 2 hours later, Eli sat in Lorraine's office with a glass of water he could not drink. Lorraine was composed, with neat files and a steel thread voice. "Tell me all of it," she said. Eli told her about the foil circle, the cameras, the vent, the messages, the hidden phone, the pill each morning. He even told her about the DNA kits he had mailed for himself and the children. "We'll need those results," Lorraine said, not unkindly. "I'm not proud of any of this," Eli admitted. Lorraine nodded. "You're not on trial here. You're building clarity. She explained his options in clean lines. Do nothing and hope for change. File a low-conflict divorce and split fairly, or file for cause, adultery, fraud, emotional harm, and press hard. Which one protects your future? She asked. Eli looked at the window, at the thin band of sky beyond the blinds. The last one, he said. Then we do it right, she replied. But we gather every piece we need first. Michelle drove him to a modest hotel and pushed the room key into his hand. Eat, sleep, and don't open a minibar, she said with a small smile that did not reach her eyes. You have to keep your head. Eli sat on the bed and watched the shadows on the carpet until his phone buzzed. The DNA lab. Samples received. Results expected within 48 hours. He locked the phone and stared at the ceiling. Morning crawled in the next day, and with it the message. Results ready. His thumb hovered. I can't, he whispered. Michelle took the phone gently, opened the portal, and scanned the page. Her face folded. Not yet, she said, handing it back. They're still processing one profile. Eli laughed once, a hollow sound. He went to see his business attorney Brian instead, something he could control. Brian reminded him of the prenuptial agreement that protected the company. Put your personal funds behind a wall, Brian advised. Buy out Robert's shares, move liquidity into the firm, refinance anything that can be ring-fenced. Do it before filings. It's legal and it's smart. Over lunch, Robert, the partner who had talked for months about stepping back, listened to Eli's flat confession. I'm sorry, Robert said, and he meant it. I'll sell down to 5% and consult part-time. It's cleaner for both of us. They signed term sheets an hour later. On the sidewalk outside, Michelle refreshed the lab page again. She read in silence, then looked up with eyes that carried pity and strength at once. Eli, she said, I am so sorry. He took the phone. The words were simple and devastating. Probability of paternity, 0% for both children. Eli gripped the rail until his knuckles whitened. He tasted metal at the back of his tongue. Focus, Michelle whispered. Breathe. Then move. She steered him back to Lorraine's office, where the attorney already had another update. A private investigator had observed a man enter Eli's house the night before using his own key. No faces on camera, but small hands had reached up from the couch and a child's voice had shouted, Daddy Bill. The name hit Eli like a falling beam. He did not need a last name to know which Bill it was. Lorraine's eyes sharpened. If Bill is who I think he is, Mara's superior, then there's a non-fraternization clause we can leverage, she said. We can also pursue alienation of affection, depending on the state statutes. And if birth certificates were knowingly falsified, that is fraud. Eli listened like a man underwater, hearing shapes more than words. Michelle squeezed his shoulder, an anchor in human form. We file Monday, Lorraine said, for divorce on grounds of adultery, fraud, and emotional distress. We serve him at work. We serve the company's HR. We serve Mara at her desk. We move money into the company before filings post. We get ahead of the narrative. Eli nodded. Do it, he said. That night, Michelle would not let him be alone. She gave him a quiet guest room in her single-story house. No lines were crossed. She brought tea, set it on the nightstand, and said, Sleep. Tomorrow we keep building your future. Tonight you're allowed to be human. Monday arrived like a bell. At exactly 10 a.m., Eli's phone pinged. Service confirmed. Papers had landed where they needed to land. On Mara's desk, in the rigid hands of Bill's company's HR, and in Bill's own office. Within minutes, Eli's screen filled with numbers he knew by heart. He let them ring. Then a name flashed that he could not ignore. Mom. He answered. Is this true? She asked, breath sharp with fear and anger. We received your letter. The whole family did. You can't mean it. He closed his eyes. I mean it. They are your children, she said. He swallowed. They are not. Silence stretched thin. You raised them, she insisted. That matters. It was built on a lie, he said, and the words sounded like stone falling down a well. I won't pretend anymore. Her voice softened and then hardened again. Don't make them pay for her choices, she pleaded. Don't let this turn you into someone cruel. Eli had no answer that would heal that moment. I have to go, he said at last, and ended the call. Mara arrived 20 minutes later, hair unbrushed, eyes red, anger and panic warring on her face. She shut Eli's office door behind her and stood with her hands clenched.
We need to talk, she said.
I'm not interested, he replied, keeping his voice level. You owe me a chance to explain, she said. No, he answered. I owe you nothing. You lied to me for 9 years. You asked me to get a vasectomy while you kept taking the pill. You hid a second phone in a vent. You let another man use keys to our house. You let your children call him Dad. Her mouth opened and closed.
It isn't what you think, she tried.
It's exactly what I think, he said. My lawyer's contact is in your packet. Speak to her. She glanced toward the hall. What about the children? She asked. Eli felt his chest burn. Do not say that word to me as if it binds us, he said. Take your children and go to the man who fathered them. He called to the babysitter and dismissed her on the spot, naming her role in the secret. Mara flinched. You can't. I just did, he answered. Pack.
Leave. Now.
Mara gathered the kids. Say goodbye, she began. Don't, he said, turning away. The door closed behind them. The house went very quiet. Eli sat down, put his face in his hands, and finally let the grief come like rain on a roof that could no longer keep it out. When Mara's car finally disappeared down the street, Eli collapsed onto the couch. The silence felt heavy, almost physical. He didn't cry loudly, just slow, shaking breaths and silent tears that blurred the floor tiles. Every sound in the house, the ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, felt like a reminder of what had been lost. Then came a soft knock. Michelle stepped in, holding a grocery bag and a steady expression. You shouldn't be alone tonight, she said simply. He didn't answer, only nodded. She set the food on the counter and began unpacking like she had done it 100 times before. Eat, she said, then rest. He obeyed because it was easier than arguing. That night, Eli barely slept. Memories and questions tangled together. The first time he'd met Mara, the laughter, the long nights when their kids had been sick, her smile when he'd told her about his promotion. Were all those moments fake? Or had she loved him once and simply changed? He didn't know which was worse. Around dawn, he checked his phone. Dozens of missed calls from unknown numbers, some from family, one from Mara's lawyer. He turned it off and went to the window. The first light of morning made the world outside look almost peaceful. He envied that calm. Later that day, Michelle called him to her office. You need to keep moving, she told him. The court hearing is set for next week. Lorraine wants to finalize the asset transfers before then. Eli nodded. He had become mechanical, signing documents, answering questions, nodding when asked. Everything he once cared about felt far away. The company paperwork became his lifeline, something practical in a world that no longer made sense. When they finished, Michelle gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder. You're stronger than you think, she said. He wasn't sure she was right. 2 days later, Eli received an email. Restraining order filed against you for emotional harm. He read it twice before it made sense. Mara had accused him of aggression. Of course, he muttered. Lorraine called within minutes. Don't panic, she said. It's a tactic. She's trying to establish a narrative before the custody hearing. Eli almost laughed. Custody? Of kids who aren't mine. Lorraine sighed. That's why it's a tactic. We'll overturn it quickly. Within 48 hours, the judge dismissed the order, acknowledging that Eli had been the one uncovering deception, not causing harm. Meanwhile, news spread fast. Mara moved in with her parents. Bill, the man she'd risked everything for, was suspended from his position. His company had received the lawsuit, violation of workplace policy, moral misconduct, and alienation of affection. Eli felt nothing reading the headlines. He didn't celebrate or gloat. It was just another fact in a world that had already shattered. Michelle handled most of the communication, shielding him from gossip. When Lorraine called to say the company wanted to settle quietly, Eli agreed without hesitation. Take it, he said. I want no part of them again. Weeks turned into a month. The house felt hollow now. Eli avoided the children's rooms. Their toys still sat where they'd left them. Every now and then, he caught himself setting an extra plate at the table or hearing a laugh that wasn't there. He started sleeping at Michelle's guest room again, finding peace in her quiet house. She didn't pry. She simply made sure he ate and got to work. Sometimes, they'd sit in silence, the TV murmuring in the background. There was no pressure, no false sympathy, just calm companionship, something he hadn't realized he needed. One morning, Lorraine called with an update. "It's over," she said. "The divorce is finalized. You're officially free." Eli leaned back in his chair, unsure whether to smile or cry. "Thank you," he said softly. "You did well," she replied. "You came through one of the ugliest kinds of betrayal and still kept your head." After the call ended, he sat still for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and saw another message from Michelle. "Come to the office. We need to discuss something urgent." His heart skipped. He went immediately. When Eli arrived, Michelle was waiting in his office doorway, her face pale.
"Bill is dead," she said.
He froze. "What?" "His wife found him with Mara," she said quietly. "She shot him. He didn't make it." The words didn't register at first. "And Mara?" he asked finally. "She survived," Michelle said. "She's in custody, at least for now." Eli sat down slowly, staring at nothing. He didn't know whether to feel shock, sorrow, or grim relief. The man who had fathered the children he'd raised was gone. The affair that had ruined his life had ended in blood. It was poetic, maybe, but not beautiful. Just sad. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls and legal updates. The lawsuit against the company was settled. Eli received a substantial sum that helped him repay loans and stabilize the firm. Bill's personal estate, under court order, compensated him further. When the checks cleared, Eli realized he was financially free. But freedom didn't feel like victory. He drove to his old neighborhood one evening, parking near a small park where he used to take the kids. He watched other families play, fathers pushing swings, mothers laughing on benches. His heart ached with a quiet, heavy longing. He wondered if James and Sonia would even remember him when they grew up. Michelle found him there an hour later. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat beside him, folding her hands in her lap. "You can't stay stuck here forever," she said finally. "You've been through hell, but you're still standing. That means something." Eli looked at her and saw not pity, but genuine care. "What am I supposed to do now?" he asked. "Start over," she said. "Not by forgetting, but by living." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "And maybe by trusting someone again." Her words hung in the air like a soft challenge. Eli didn't answer, but for the first time in months, he didn't feel entirely broken. Over the next week, Eli tried to rebuild a rhythm. He went back to work full-time, attended meetings, and signed contracts. The engineers who had once looked up to him treated him with quiet respect, aware of what he'd been through, but too professional to mention it. In the evenings, he spent time at Michelle's house, eating dinner with her and listening to the soft hum of the city outside her window. Life began to settle into a slow, careful peace. He still thought of the children often, but he no longer woke up in panic or anger. The sharpness of betrayal had dulled into something quieter, an ache that lived inside him but no longer ruled him. One Friday afternoon, a letter arrived at the office. It was from the court, confirmation of the divorce settlement and the lawsuit's completion. Eli opened it carefully, reading every line. The paper declared him officially free of all legal ties to Mara, and the company's settlement made him financially secure again. He folded the letter and placed it in his drawer, staring at it for a long time. This was closure, cold, neat, and written in ink. Yet it didn't feel like victory. It just felt done. That evening, Michelle came into his office with an envelope in her hand. "One last thing," she said softly. It was the final settlement check from Bill's estate. "With this," she said, "you've cleared every debt and repaid every loan. You're completely free, Eli." He stared at the check for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Free," he repeated, testing the word like it was new to him. Michelle nodded.
Yes.
Free to live. Free to start over. For the first time in months, he felt the truth of it. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Eli leaned back in his chair. Strange, he said quietly. I thought freedom would feel louder. Michelle smiled. Sometimes peace is quiet. She closed the office door behind her, then turned back to him. You know, she added, you've spent so long fighting for the truth that you forgot how to feel anything else. Eli met her eyes. Maybe I was afraid to, he admitted. Maybe I thought feeling again would make me weak. It doesn't, she said. It makes you human. A silence stretched between them, soft, not uncomfortable. Then Michelle stepped closer, her expression calm but sure. She reached out, touched his hand, and said quietly, Not every woman lies, Eli. Not every story ends in heartbreak. He didn't pull away. Her touch felt grounding, real. For months she had been his anchor, steady and strong when everything else had fallen apart. Now he finally saw what had been there all along, someone who had cared for him without asking for anything in return. He exhaled a long, trembling breath and whispered, I think I forgot what trust feels like. Michelle smiled faintly, the kind of smile that holds both patience and warmth. Then let me remind you, she said. She leaned forward and kissed him, softly at first, then with quiet certainty. The world seemed to pause. No past, no betrayal, no lies. Just two people who had found each other after too much pain. When she drew back, Eli's heart was beating hard, not from shock, but from something gentler. Hope. You sure about this? He asked, half smiling through tears. Michelle nodded. I've been sure for a long time. For the next few weeks, their connection deepened naturally. There were no grand declarations, no rush. Michelle didn't try to fix him. She simply stood beside him as he rebuilt piece by piece. She was practical and kind, steady where Mara had been unpredictable. Sometimes, in the middle of a quiet dinner, Eli would look at her and realize that the world no longer felt heavy. The past still existed, but it no longer defined him. What had started as survival was slowly becoming life again. One evening, as they watched the sunset from her porch, Eli said quietly, You know, I used to think I'd never want a family again. Michelle tilted her head. And now? He smiled. Now I think I just wanted the right one. She laughed softly. That's a good start. He hesitated, then added, Dr. Hinton once told me that vasectomy reversals have a high success rate. Michelle turned to him, eyes wide. You're thinking about? He nodded, smiling. Maybe. Someday. If the time's right. She reached for his hand. Then we'll see where life takes us. For the first time in almost a year, Eli felt genuinely alive. The house he'd once filled with sorrow became a place of laughter again. He planted new flowers in the garden, replaced the curtains, and even adopted a dog. It wasn't about erasing the past, but proving to himself that love could exist again, just differently. Michelle often joined him there on weekends, helping paint walls and talking about dreams rather than fears. Every brushstroke, every plan, felt like a quiet declaration that healing was possible. One evening, as they finished repainting the living room, Eli stood in the center of the room, watching the fading light stretch across the walls. You know, he said, smiling, I think this is where my old life ends and my new one begins. Michelle wiped a streak of paint from his cheek and laughed. Then let's make it a good one. He looked around, the once broken home now filled with warmth, and nodded. Maybe heartbreak was the price of freedom, he said quietly. And maybe, Michelle replied, taking his hand, freedom was worth every tear. And in that still moment, surrounded by fresh paint, evening light, and the promise of something new, Eli finally felt at peace. Please like, comment, and subscribe.